Mark of high school football 2013. This is the Web Insurance Countdown to Kickoff on 1150 WIMA. My name's Todd Walker. Our roundtable segment for Week 5. Mike Miller and Jason Aldrich will join me as we review last week and talk about this week and make picks and all of that. Gentlemen, last week a sloppy, wet night, and maybe nowhere was it wetter than Bath. Mike, for your game on 107.5 WZRX, Wapakoneta and Bath, that, by the highlights I saw, that might have been the wettest game of the night. There was water standing everywhere.
Yeah, it was pretty sloppy, no doubt about it. But you know what's incredible, Todd? Other than when I went from vehicle to the press box at about 5:30,
Yeah.
I never got wet at all. I completely avoided all of it, and it was a super sloppy evening. But you're right, the field was a slogfest, and to Wapakoneta's credit, I think they really sensed it. They came out strong, and they felt like we need to score as quickly as possible because the field conditions are going to disintegrate with the 22 players on the field. And Wapakoneta's experience really was a key also in being able to really just keep your footing. I think there was something to be said for that. It paid off for the Redskins.
Yeah, they got out to the 21-0 lead, and then second half it was all about getting out of there. And I think you saw that with a number of teams last week that were able to get an early lead, and they just kind of sat on it. Kenton was up 32-0 on Van Wert, and they weren't interested in doing anything but getting out of there. Mm-hmm. If you were fortunate enough to build a lead, that's what you tried to do. Our broadcast game last week didn't go that way. It was a close one as OG held off Shawnee via a blocked PAT 14-13.
Wow.
It was really a well-played game, a clean game considering the conditions. Not that many turnovers. Each team had a fumble. So it was a well-played game, but OG gets the win, and that was huge for them because they avoid a second league loss as they host Defiance tonight. Also last week in the WBL, Elida rolled over St. Mary's, and that was the extent of it, as we already talked about, Kenton winning. So last week, not anything huge as far as a surprise in the WBL. This week, I guess you'd say the big game in the Western Buckeye League would be the one you're going to have, Mike, coming up later. Salina, Wapakoneta. That one will be on 107.5 WZRX. Salina, a surprise to many at 4-0 after a 14-10 win over Defiance last week. What are you hearing about the Bulldogs?
Well, they're a bit of a surprise simply because people naturally thought that the loss of Coach Jared Rolfs before the start of the season was going to just completely shatter the deal. Proved not to be the case. Trent Temple slipped right in there. Also, losing their veteran quarterback after a few years was going to be a big deal. And they've made the quick transition there as a sophomore. Caleb Hoying has really, there's that name, Hoying, and the quarterback position.
Right.
Isn't there a Hoying that took over down at Coldwater also, frankly? And wasn't there a Hoying at St. Henry back in the early 90s?
Are they all Hoying? Because there are some that are just NG.
Well, I don't know.
They're all, but the point still.
The point is, they're all somehow they go back to the old country in Germany. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, Salina's been very impressive. They've showed maturity, and they've benefited from a couple things. They have like 3 starters back on their offensive line, so that's helped the maturation of their sophomore quarterback, and they're a very physical team defensively, I understand. So Salina's done well. They've surprised maybe a little bit winning their first 4 out of the gate, but not just utter surprise. And I don't have to tell you, with them still being undefeated, they're really the only team that has a shot at Kenton. And tonight's game with Wapakoneta, frankly, is all about the Division III Region 10 playoffs.
Yeah, Salina has yet to allow 20 points in a game in any of the 4 wins. 19, 15, 14, and 10 is how many points they have allowed. Brandon Bilger, their quarterback the last 3 or 4 years, I think a lot of people were more concerned about him leaving than Coach Rolfus. Right. But in the end, they've got a sophomore stepping up, and that's what it's all about in high school football.
It's a great matchup on paper.
No doubt about it. Again, Shawnee, or I should say Wapakoneta, hosting Salina tonight. You can hear that game on WZRX 107.5. Also in the WBL tonight, Defiance at OG. Defiance, 2 tough losses this year, close, that came down to the end. and they'll try to get back on track tonight. Bath looking for their first win. So is St. Mary's at Skip Bachman Stadium tonight. Van Wert is 0-4 there at Elida. And Shawnee, tough test tonight, trying to slow down Kenton. Let's move to the Northwest Conference, and the big game tonight is a non-league game, but it's Delphus Jefferson at 4-0. Last week they whipped Allen East, and people are starting to pay attention to the Jeff Cats. They'll host Lima Central Catholic, who bounced back from their first regular season loss in 3 years with a resounding win over Columbus Grove. Jason Aldrich had that game on WIMA last week. LCC took out their frustrations on Grove last week, Jason, and looked good doing it.
Yeah, they absolutely did, Todd, and it was a pretty impressive performance. They even got robbed, I remember, as Darnell Collins and I did the game. Just a wild scenario that actually ended up going in their favor on a punt, on a muffed punt, where they were actually able to score on it in the second half that really put the game out of reach. There were, I believe, 3 or 4 straight penalties on both teams where it ended up forcing them to retry and backing up.
They had to keep re-punting the ball.
Yeah, and Stolle finally, I believe on the 4th or 5th try, took a muffed snap and ran about 120 yards, but ended up going 80 yards for a score. And then also, too, and I know the people that were at the game probably witnessed this, but on an extra point try, Coach Cooper going to the trick bag in the playbook, try to play where the holder gets the snap and then flips it as he stays crouched with a knee on the ground to the player running around from the wing to take it in and walk in for an easy 2-point conversion. There was an inadvertent whistle that blew the play dead, so it killed it, and then they had to retry it. But all in all, it was a blowout win for LCC.
See, that's the kind of play, all due respect to Coach Cooper, you almost need to give the linesman or whomever.
I think they did.
Oh, they gave him a heads up, and they still blew the whistle. Anyhow. Okay.
Yeah, they were pretty upset about it. But the bottom line for LCC, Jason, is they got back on track, and now they've got a tough one at Jefferson tonight. And I guess since you saw them, do you get the sense that they really are back on track, or was it just one of those nights where they had an overmatched team in Columbus Grove?
It might be a combination of both. I think now that they're going to be focused on what they need to do to make a playoff run here. Obviously, no division or a conference to win this year. So yeah, I think they've got it going in the right direction. I mean, a fluke play here and there, it goes to their advantage, but I think they're a pretty disciplined team here at this point.
Well, we'll see what the T-Birds can do tonight at Jefferson. The Jeff Cats, Coach Bub Lindeman, really leaning on Austin Jenninghoff, and if they can knock off the T-Birds tonight, they're going to be really happy.
Although that's Jenninghoff plays for the other team in town, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm talking about Bizard.
Yeah, right.
I'm sorry. I got St. John's and Jefferson mixed up. Don't shoot me, Delphus people.
Easy to do, absolutely. And a tribute to both guys. Of course, Jenninghoff's outstanding for the Jays, but
Bizard has got some huge numbers.
And this will be a challenge for him tonight. We'll see how good he really is. And I mean, Bob Lindeman will be the first to tell you, it's test time for Jefferson.
Sure.
And there's a little insight on these games with Central Catholic and the old Northwest Conference opponents.
Absolutely.
Because there ain't no love there at all.
No doubt. Also, Bluffton at Ada tonight in the Northwest Conference is a key game. And our game tonight is St. Francis at Lima Senior. We'll talk more about that coming up as we get closer to kickoff. We'll hear from Coach Fell, and we'll continue to break that down. But Spartans are on a 2-game winning streak, guys, and they haven't won 3 in a row since 2000. So a chance to really send a message that they are back. St. Francis, a surprise at 3-1. Right now, the second best team in Toledo by all accounts, other than Toledo Central Catholic. So a tough test for Lima Senior tonight. With that in mind, that gets us to our picks. And last week, the only difference was the Lima Senior Fremont Ross game, and Mike Miller was the one who picked Lima Senior. And with that, he and Jason Aldrich now tied for the top spot at 15-5. Yours truly a game back. So it was it really was an undefeated week for all of us except the Lima Senior game. We all had OG over Shawnee. We all had Wapakoneta over Bath. We all had Jefferson over Allen East. We all had Coldwater over St. John's.
And I believe the coin got me on the Lima Senior game.
Well, there you go. And that was a 13-12 Lima Senior win, almost identical to OG's win over Shawnee. It was a blocked PAT.
Yeah.
That was the difference. And a lot of times in close games, with pretty even teams on a sloppy track almost always comes down to somebody misses their kick, and that's what happened. So we move on to our picks this week. Game number 1, Salina at Wapakoneta. And this is one that I think is, I think you could get some people splitting their votes here if you polled the electorate. But I don't know that Salina is as good as they appear at 4-0. I think Wapakoneta's got some things figured out since Kenton whipped them a couple of weeks ago. Coach Fry admittedly said, hey, we've got to shake things up. If some guys are playing both ways, so be it. We're going to put our best guys in there. And I like Wapakoneta tonight to beat Salina. Mike, you'll have the call on WZRX. How do you see it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this game, but certainly it would be easy for me to just say, sure, I'll pick Wapakoneta also, because as you suggest, Todd, they have made some excellent moves. They've gotten some people in the right positions, especially offensively, where it's about getting the ball in their hands because they can make things happen. Keaton Metz, for one, obviously Zach Schmergy, John Eaton. My biggest concern with Wapakoneta, though, they haven't been stressed enough to establish almost any kind of a passing game at all this year. So that would be my biggest concern. But being at home, homecoming, I think Wapakoneta will win a close game. Very close and low scoring, actually.
Jason, your pick on Salina Wapakoneta.
All right, Mr. Miller, you're going to need to hold this and flip it around because I'm going to need both hands here.
I got
So
you.
we want to get this
going to
in
the
front.
coin.
I got to go to it right away here. This is too close. Wapak home, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Home team gets the heads. Tails goes to the road team. I'm going Tails. I'm going Salina.
All right, so we got a difference maker right out of the chute on our first pick. We're going to stay in the WBL for pick number 2, Defiance at OG. Mike, you'll go first on this pick.
I'm going to pick Defiance. I think the Titans aren't maybe quite as physical as they have been, and that's been Defiance's calling card this year. So I'll take Defiance in a slight upset on the road. Those are two big rivals more than people realize because they're geographically pretty close together. So I'm picking Defiance at OG.
All right, Jason, your pick now.
Here I'm going to go with the home team. I'm going to go with Ottawa Glandorf. I think the Titans play well enough at home against good teams. They rise up to the competition at home, and I'm picking the Titans.
You know, if I was ever Weasley enough to use a coin, this would be one.
Oh, so I'm a weasel.
Yeah, that's well
absolutely.
established.
Fair, fair.
You know what? I'm going with OG. They burned me earlier this year at Salina, but I think the Titans are pretty solid. I think Defiance is as well, but I'm going to take OG on their home field. Bluffton at Ada, Northwest Conference game this week, the biggest game as far as the league is concerned. And Bluffton, I thought, was a little better than what they have proven to be. They've been a bit of a disappointment. Last week, a 7-6 loss to Crestview. The week before, they were routed by Jefferson. And Ada lost at Fort Loramie last week. I'm going to take the upset here. I'm going to take Bluffton to win at Ada this week.
Another close call.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, although I don't think the Ada loss at Fort Loramie was any great upset. And Fort Loramie.
Fort Loramie's good.
Yeah, Fort Loramie's pretty good. But my point is, I think Fort Loramie was keyed up because somebody pretty good was their opposition.
Sure.
You know, they got some cakewalks in their league on occasion. So I'm kind of with you, Todd, but I'm going to pick the home team, the Ada Bulldogs at War Memorial Stadium.
All right, Jason.
For the record, it is not Weasley. It is a game-picking aid is what it is.
It's a cop.
Just get it over with.
But I'm not going to use it here. I'm going with Ada to win over Bluffton.
All right. Another good one tonight. LCC at Jefferson. The T-Birds got back on track last week. The Jeff Cats have yet to taste defeat. And I've been impressed with Jefferson. But I really think LCC getting punched in the mouth by Marion Pleasant, I think kind of taught them a lesson that needed to be learned. And I think their big playability is a little too much for the Jeff Cats. I'm going to take the T-Birds tonight.
You know, Todd, I was a kid growing up. I could walk out the front door of my house and I could see the lights at Stadium Park on the north side of Delphus. It's hard for me to go against undefeated Delphus Jefferson, so I'm not. I'm picking the Jefferson Wildcats
All right.
to pull a mild upset over
Yeah.
Lima Central Catholic.
I would say it would be a mild upset, not too huge. Jason, what do you think?
Boy, this is one that's got me itching to go to the
Now,
flip
look
here,
at this.
but I'm not going to
All
again.
right.
I saw enough what I saw last week, so I'm going to take the Birds in this one.
And our last game is Lima Senior Toledo St. Francis at Lima Stadium.
Jeez.
That's our game tonight here on WIMA. St. Francis resurgent at 3-1, and possibly the second best team in Toledo right now. A nice win over St. John's last week. Spartans have won 2 in a row for the first time in 13 years. Mike, who you got?
I'm picking the Spartans. I'm going to ride that horse until it lets me down, and 3 in a row sounds good to me. St. Francis has been sort of a patsy over the last few years. They might be back a little bit, or maybe their 3-1 is reflective of not that great of a schedule they've played so far. So I'm going to senior high 3 in a row.
All right, Jason, who you got?
I'm going to go with the logic here of if I keep picking against them, they'll keep winning. So I'm taking Toledo St. Francis.
You know what? I'm torn on this one as well as who to pick. This week there's a lot of tough games to pick. And I love the Spartan story that's going right now, but from what I've seen, St. Francis is pretty doggone good. I'm going to take them to post the win tonight. That's all the time we have on this segment of the Countdown to Kickoff. Lima Senior hosting Toledo St. Francis tonight. More to come on 1150 WIMA.